chew bubble gum, and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Trying to reconcile how Benghazi was not safe enough for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go, but it was safe enough to leave a below-spec facility for our diplomats to stay in.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome. Welcome one and all to the bloviating Zeppelins, that's me, Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon, right here on the SHR Media Network.
I opted for convenience to use my personal email account.
I bet you
which
did.
Was allowed by the State Department because I thought it would be easier.
Snowball is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is indeed lighted to my left, your right. If you happen to be watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel, if you happen to be watching on the SHR Media Facebook page live, and if you happen to be on High Plains Media's TV channel as well. Imagine that. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask, one simple thing here in the Saloon: flush the toilet, jiggle the handle. We don't want any overflows. Just had that last night. That was terrible, very bad. Don't forget to tip your waitress, please. So tonight in the Saloon, it just happens to be, oddly enough, Thursday, November the 16th.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Imagine that. Because here in the Saloon, we definitely believe that government is the problem. Holy crap. Anyway, I was going to say it's Thursday night. This is your late night talk show center. Things get a bit salty here, which is why we're on at night. If you happen to be listening, well, on the left coast, it's 8 o'clock. It's about 8:05 right now on the far left coast. And that's where I happen to be, in the SHR Media Studio, just a few miles from Leftist Central on the entire damn left coast. We're about 2 miles from the state capital of Sacramento, the Bill Mill, where all the crap happens to come from. All the leftist buttery good crap that you can possibly imagine gets thought of and disseminated there first. Yay crap. It is, like I say, Thursday, November the 16th, the year of our Lord, 2017. A couple of housekeeping type things. One of them is I will be here next week on Tuesday. I think the Sackheads are going to be here next week on Wednesday. I will be available, I know that. And I don't believe that I will be available on Thanksgiving. I'm of two minds about whether or not I want to do a podcast and then just schedule it for then. I may do that. I'm not quite sure. Just to have some content going on SHR on Thursday that you can listen to at will. You don't have to be here live to listen to it. So that's some housekeeping type stuff. The other thing is, luckily, it's been raining like crazy around here, and this is great. Now, like I say, we're in Sacramento, Fornicalia, and the year before, 2015, we had our, that was about the 4th year of drought. It was a terrible, terrible year. Things changed in the winter of 2016, and we were about 140% of normal rainfall and, more importantly, snowfall up where I live. So things, the snow stayed on the ground, water came down, and, of course, the first damn thing we did to it is we shipped it to Southern California for all the illegal immigrants. Whoa, yay, water. So it rained all day yesterday here in Sacramento, which was a great thing. And it's really nice. I don't know what you guys do, but if it rains at night, what I really enjoy doing is I'll slide the window open. It really doesn't matter how damn cold it is out there, but I like to hear the rain. So last night I opened up the window. I mean, it rained all damn night and all this morning. Stopped a little bit and then picked up. I got into the car to come to the studio tonight, and just as I'm puddling down Power Inn Road, it starts raining again like crazy. So it's raining now outside. I have the door closed because I don't want the rain to blow in here. The wind was starting to pick up a little bit. But tonight, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to have the damn window open again, if it is still raining, and I'm going to be listening to the rain. That's a wonderful way to put your little head to bed. I mean, talk about some great noise to listen to if you want to get some good sound slumbers. Now, a little bit about tonight. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to have any guests tonight. It's just going to be me. And I'm going to be talking about leftists, and I'm going to be talking and addressing a few things that, because of all sorts of other shite that's gone on, including the fact that we lost our internet, I'm going to go over some stuff that I haven't been able to address yet, but still is like a bad remora to my chin. I still want to do something about it and kind of get it off my chin and off my chest. No, there's no remora on my chest right now. In chat, it's myself and Mike and one viewer. So, Mike, good to see you. This is a... I guess I'm going to do this. I'm of two minds about doing this under the aegis of this intro. But I'm going to because it's kind of happy, and I'll tell you why, and it's kind of really sad in another way. But yes, we're going to go here right now.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
So you're probably wondering to yourself, BZ, that's me, what do you mean by it's kind of happy and it's kind of sad? I'll get to the happy part in a bit. I'll tell you the kind of sad part up front. This is from Daily Caller. The headline is, Doctors Found Parasites They'd Never Seen Before Inside the North Korean Soldier Who Bolted at the DMZ. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, what's the dealio about that? The North Korean soldier who suffered multiple gunshot wounds during a brazen blitz into South Korea at the demilitarized zone remains in critical condition, according to South Korean reports. This guy ran across the DMV and got... DMV, Jesus. I called it the DMV last night on Sackheads. And maybe the DMZ is like the DMV. I would submit it probably is, because my guess would be thousands of North Koreans are lining up to make that mad dash if they could. So I guess that's kind of like the DMV. In any event, during the DMZ, this guy ran across in the joint security area at the DMZ. His good buddies on the north side, because he's a North Korean soldier, fired 40 rounds, 5, listen to this, 5 of which hit him. He underwent multiple surgeries to remove the bullets and address infection. The soldier remains unconscious and is on life support in the intensive care unit at a South Korean medical facility where he's being treated by this really popular trauma surgeon of South Korea. Interesting also insofar as this guy did this not long after Trump got to South Korea. Kind of an interesting coinky-dink. I'm not quite sure. One issue in particular was the presence of several large parasites, the longest of which was 10.5 inches. Talk about a brain worm that I've just inserted into you. Try to unsee that in your head, because I have a pretty good visual of what that must be like. The parasites complicated the surgery to remove the bullets from the man's abdomen. An incredible amount of parasites were found in the stomach of the soldier from the JSA, so we are having trouble treating him. Reporters were told, we've never seen anything like it in a Korean person before, and it can bring about tremendous complications and make a prognosis difficult. The worms were reportedly all inside the man's small intestine as well. He goes on, we discovered parasites that are simply not found in people in this country. Now, that's the stipulation. In this country, meaning South Korea. Major differentiation, as you'll see. He said, I haven't seen them in my 20 years as a doctor except in textbooks. The parasites were reportedly roundworms, which are common in developing countries like North Korea, where crops are fertilized with human feces. In South Korea, no matter how poor you are, preventive measures are offered so that no such parasites can exist. It's unclear what North Korean soldiers are eating or the quality of the supplies provided. Boom. And that's my point. Happy stories insofar as, it's bad for this guy and it's bad for all the rest of the North Korean soldiers, but it's good insofar as what this tells me, this reveals a massive bit of insight into North Korea itself in terms of what are the actual conditions. Now, Pyongyang purposely is kept as a wonderful, stellar city that the North Koreans use to display, to have people coming in and see how wonderful, clean, allegedly modern, etc. it is. But that's just a falsehood. That's a massive falsehood. This, however, this situation with this soldier, that's pulled the curtain back. And that's telling you the conditions under which the North Korean troops are operating. So you have to, I am asking my first question, which is this guy unique, or is this something that's endemic throughout all of the North Korean military? And I'd say it's B. What that tells me is give these people an opportunity to somehow improve their condition or perhaps overthrow Kim Jong-un. If you're keeping the people that protect you under these conditions, you cannot expect loyalty from folks like this, who may be looking to wonder why it is that Kim Jong-un looks like a butterball turkey and the rest of them look like gaunt people, like walkers from The Walking Dead. I submit that's some pretty interesting insight. Now we're going to go into the politics. I kind of went over to the Asia for a while. Now we're going to come back to UK after this story, because there's a story that issues from the UK Daily Mail today that I discovered. And this gives you a great additional insight, and that's another reason that I'm bringing it here, to the mind of leftists and how much they value you when you, as an individual, no longer can do very much for them as leftists. We'll be going there in just a bit. But first, that I'm not quite sure, I haven't heard much of this. I initially heard it come out, but on a lot of the talk shows that I listen to on the radio and on TV, I have not heard much reference made to this. So here's an article from dailycaller.com, and the headline is, Dems introduce articles of impeachment against Trump. Now, wasn't it true that Maxine Waters says 45 has to go, 45 needs to be impeached, yada, 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 Rentune. For all you Frank Zappa enthusiasts, that's a reference. But now you're actually seeing a bit of action on it. Well, what kind of action are you seeing? And the other thing you have to ask yourself is, what are the chances of something like this? Well, listen. A group of 6 Democrat House members introduced articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump Wednesday, claiming the president has violated federal law. Okay, which ones? The public trust. How is that? And should be charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, that's the threshold under which people are charged with an impeachable offense in terms of the presidency. And that's the phrase that's used, high crimes and misdemeanors, which means that, well, they have to be actual crimes. and not things that you just don't like about Trump or things that I don't trust the man, so we need to impeach him. He's not a leftist. He's not a Democrat. He's not a favored person in the American media maggot realm. So we must do something about that and impeach him. That's not quite the standard that's applied to an impeachable offense. Democrat representatives Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Luis Gutierrez of Illinois, Al Green of Texas, and Adriano Espaillet of New York introduced 5 articles of impeachment at a press conference at the Capitol on Wednesday. The articles have 2 more co-sponsors, Representatives Marcia Fudge of Ohio. Oh, can you imagine the crap that she took in high school and junior high? And John Yarmouth of Kentucky. The congressmen list a number of charges against the president, including obstruction of justice, prove it, a violation of the Constitution's Foreign Emoluments Clause, prove it, a violation of the Constitution's Domestic Emoluments Clause, prove it, undermining the federal judiciary process, and undermining the press. Those are actual. Those are not charges. Those are not crimes. Undermining the press. The Constitution, when written, didn't say anything about charging or not charging something under the press. So, dare I play this? I think I will, just so you can see, have a little bit of insight in terms of what these dudes are thinking. That is, if I can get the volume on. There we go.
With other Congress people who will be here in announcing that we're introducing articles of impeachment to remove President Trump from office. There will be, I believe, 6 signatories on the resolution. We have taken this action because of great concern for our country and our Constitution, our national security, and our democracy.
Gesundheit.
We believe that President Trump has violated the Constitution, and we've introduced 5 articles of impeachment. The first is obstruction of justice, which deals with Mr. Comey's firing. The second is a violation of the Constitution's foreign...
Okay. Stop right there. Comey's firing. The president is well within his right to fire any FBI director. Had Barack Obama done the exact same thing, do you think we would be here today? And you know what the answer on that is. And you know BZ's thoughts about James Comey. James Comey brought terrible and heinous embarrassment upon the FBI, where I used to work, and the line-level agents slink around in sadness and embarrassment that James Comey did this to their valued FBI, and still they soldier on. So let me make this clear. It's the head of the FBI, that floor, and all those sycophants. Those are the people in whom I have no trust. It is not the line-level agents attempting as best they can to do their jobs. The president had the right to fire James Comey, who leaked information. Leaked. I have never in my life heard of an FBI director leak information, classified information, or not, for a political goal. He completely politicized the FBI. The only issue that I had with Donald Trump was that on June 20th at 11 p.m., just a few hours after being inaugurated, in my opinion, Comey should have been out on his arse at that time. That day, the inauguration day, period. End of statement. So defending Comey, yeah, you can go to hell.
Deals with monies he's taken from foreign powers without the consent of Congress.
He's taken money from foreign powers. Really? Where? I don't see anything to indicate that. Prove it.
The third is a violation of the Domestic Emoluments Clause, which deals with monies he's made from the United States and as personal businesses beyond that of his salary, which is also forbidden by our Constitution.
When he was a citizen, not a president.
The fourth is undermining our federal judiciary, and the fifth is undermining freedom of the press.
Judiciary, how? Give instances.
These are progressive actions he's taken over a period of time against the press and against the judiciary, with positive actions to cap off a pattern of behavior, belittling and questioning these institutions that are so important.
Belittling institutions, questioning institutions. Wow, that's a high crime and misdemeanor, don't you think? Cohen said they are simply calling for the House to begin hearings on the articles. We believe that President Trump has violated the Constitution. Wrong. And we've introduced 5 articles of impeachment. Cohen, the ranking member of the House Judiciary Subcommittee in the Constitution and Civil Justice, said Wednesday. So, in terms of officially, they've started it. Now, I have to ask you, where do you think this is going to go? And the other thing that absolutely screams out at me is this. It was revealed on Wednesday. Now, customarily, would this not be completely emblazoned across every radio show on the left, every TV show on the left, 24/7? Donald Trump, the impeachment process is starting on Donald Trump. So I have to ask you, have you heard those things on the various media that you consume? I have to say, I have not, and I consume a lot of media, as you might guess. But here's my biggest question. If we're not hearing it on the left, trumpeted day and night, because here's another thing we do know. If Mueller came out, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller, if he came out tomorrow and said, I have conclusive proof of collusion with Trump and Russia, and Donald Trump got paid, there was some kind of a quid pro quo, do you think the media would drop that? Do you think that you would not hear that for the next week, 2 weeks, all the time, 24/7? So with the lack of coverage by this of the leftists, this tells me their heart ain't in it. And it also tells me this is going nowhere. And it also tells me this is a show. It's theater. It's kabuki theater. It's theater of the absurd. Going back again and again, but I'm going to remind you of it, that the Democrats, leftists, and the American Media Maggots have not yet transitioned mentally from November 8th to November 9th. That's where Hillary had her memes. Last time on the show, at the very end of Tuesday's show, I went over and revealed 27 ways that Hillary Clinton indicated that she lost the election. And it ranged from everything from misogynistic women to tidal pull and sunspots, and all 25 points in between. After that, 24 points in between. So it's this is standard. This is show. It's theater, and it's not going anywhere. If they were all in on this, they leftists, if they were all in on it, you wouldn't hear any cessation whatsoever. And it would be pounded on all MSNBC, CNN, blah, 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 blah. And it's not. And what you don't see or hear is frequently as telling as what you do see and hear. Now, we're going to go across the pond. And I came across this in the UK Daily Mail. And I started reading it, and I thought, okay, well, this isn't much, until I really paid attention to what it was saying. Now, the UK Daily Mail, generally UK media, tends to move left. Occasionally, it can be a little bit centrist, but I also go to UK media because I've discovered years ago that I can frequently find information covered there out of UK media that the American Media Maggots here won't touch. But occasionally I find something that has to do with them, with the United Kingdom, Britain, and it gives again, excellent insight into the mindset of where these people are and what they're thinking. And also why Brexit is simultaneously both hated and feared. Here's the article. And for a lot of people that are listening right here, if you were in the UK, they're talking about you. Headline, "You baby boomers are so selfish," says Cabinet Minister Sajid Javid. Boy, that's a mouthful. Say that 3 times fast. Blames housing shortage on mortgage-free elderly who are not facing up to the reality of the housing crisis. Okay, so at first blush, what I'm taking out of this, you correct me if I'm wrong, is he's saying that whatever housing crisis they're encountering in Britain is the result of somehow of selfish older people and the mortgage-free elderly. My first question, how did they get to be mortgage-free? Then these bullet points. Sajid Naveed is in charge, I think I got it that time, is in charge of housing policy and attacked the over 60s on Thursday. The minister said older people in the UK had no understanding of the problems. Oh, it will get better. He has piled pressure on Chancellor Philip Hammond before next week's budget. And the article goes like this. Baby boomers living mortgage-free stand accused of not facing up to the reality of how the housing crisis affects the young. Javid, who's in charge of housing policy, attacked the over 60s for resisting changes needed to kickstart house building. The community secretary claimed older people had, quote, no understanding of the problems and were living in a different world. But critics said his remarks were patronizing and divisive, do you think? Speaking in Bristol, the minister piled pressure on Chancellor Philip Hammond to release billions for housing in the next week's budget. Javid, a frequent critic of so-called NIMBYs. Now, a NIMBY, and I got about a minute. I may run this after the break. A NIMBY is an acronym for Not in My Backyard, NIMBY. So he's accusing NIMBYs. He said it was time to deliver moral justice for the young. I think that's a good time to take a break and cogitate on that one. Because what is this guy? Doesn't he sound to you a bit like another social justice warrior on the left in the UK? Anyone shocked besides me? We'll get back to this article. You are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon, a radio show, right here on the SHR Media Network, the network that's fully functioning, and shrmedia.com is up and running. Go there, quick like a bunny, and you can be in chat and talk, just like Mike is talking right now in chat. Folks, hang on. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHRmedia.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. If you aren't listening to it on Spreaker, you can go to shrmedia.com, click on Listen Live, or click on Air, and that's also where you'll find the chat room where Mike is right now, I should say. And also, if you feel like watching, because I'm available in 2 simulcasts right now, if you want to see what's actually happening in the SHR Media studios, you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page and go listen and watch live, or you can go to the SHR Media YouTube channel and watch it live right now, right here. I was talking about an article that just came out of the UK Daily Mail, where essentially privileged people are saying that those damn old folks, they need to move the hell aside, because that's what I'm getting out of this in terms of what the British call a housing crisis. So I last left off at this guy who is a housing minister who said, a frequent critic of so-called NIMBYs, a not-in-my-backyard kind of an individual, said it was time to deliver moral justice for the young. Have you heard that phrase anywhere before here in the United Snakes of America? And I bet you have. He warned older people they would not be permitted to stand in the way of a massive house-building drive. Figures released yesterday showed a total of 217,350 homes built last year, the highest level since the financial crisis. But Mr. Javid said more were needed, adding, "What we need now is a giant leap. I still hear from those who say there isn't a problem with housing. The affordability is only a problem for millennials that spend too much on nights out and smashed avocados." I can't say that I get that smashed avocado part. It's nonsense. The people who tell me this, usually baby boomers who have long since paid off their mortgage, they're living in a different world. Okay, stop. Do you see what he's saying? You evil fucking old people, 60 and above, because you were diligent and paid off your mortgage and worked hard, it's time for A, you to move aside, and B, he's almost suggesting to me that these people should get the hell out of their homes and let the young people come in, because they're the new ones, they're the new generation. Or am I the only one that's taking that out of there? They're not facing up to the reality of modern daily life and have no understanding of the modern market. Okay, let me ask this, Javid. The reality of the modern daily life. I bet they've had reality of modern daily life smack them right in their heads for decades. And I bet they finally have, after decades, a lot of things paid off, including their mortgages, because they paid their bills and they had jobs and went to work and labored for what they got. What a shocking concept. Absolutely shocking. They have no understanding of the modern market. His intervention was part of a move with Theresa May designed to pressure Mr. Hammond into including radical plans for house building in the budget. In a separate speech, the Prime Minister vowed to fix the broken housing market, saying she made it my mission to build the homes the country needs. Home ownership has fallen to a 30-year low, And Mr. Javid said the average age of the first-time buyer has risen to 32. And so tell me, what part of any of that is the responsibility of mortgage holders, people that have purchased their homes, people that live in their homes in the UK? What responsibility of that is theirs? I should submit none. But I also tell you about this story because I believe it's prescient. When leftists come back to power, not if, but when, because if there's one thing that we know about the predictability of politics is everything is cyclical. And nothing stays the same yet, because the leftists haven't been able to sufficiently cheat and corrupt the entire system to the point where they will continue to get elected in perpetuity, although that is in fact their fucking goal. So there will be a cycle. And when leftists come into power again in the United States, this is what they're going to consider, and this is what they're going to push for. Do you doubt me? I don't. Then there's another story. And this one particularly rankles because leftists still don't get it. And I'm going to give this article to you in this series of articles and a slant on this in terms of my 41 years having been a peace officer in the United States of America, mostly in California, occasionally on the East Coast. The article is Baltimore police officer dead, cops hunt killer. A Baltimore homicide detective was pronounced dead today, as cops continued a dragnet for his cold, callous killer. Listen to this. The slain officer, identified as homicide detective Sean Suter, was an 18-year veteran of the Baltimore Police Force. Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis said in a news conference he was also a former naval officer. This man had an idea of what it was to serve and sacrifice. The detective and his partner were in the area Wednesday investigating a 2016 murder when they observed a man engaging in what they believed to be suspicious behavior. Dressed in a full suit and tie with his badge displayed, Suter, 43, approached the suspect and a confrontation occurred. The detective was shot once in the head, and his partner, who was nearby, called for police and medics on the radio. The shooting happened in a troubled area of Baltimore that is grappling with high crime rates. Police said Suter was brought to the shock trauma center where doctors did what they could to save him. Davis said the detective had a wife and 5 children. Federal agencies are offering a $69,000 reward for information leading to the gunman's arrest, but Davis said it shouldn't take 69 cents for people to provide information. Okay, we'll get to that. He also added that there's evidence to suggest the suspect may have been injured during the incident and likely encountered individuals as he made his escape. Davis implored anyone with information to do some soul searching and pick up a phone and give us a call. But this is Baltimore. Let me point out the obvious that a lot of people don't and won't address. Baltimore is mostly black. At a time when there's such pushback, and I push back against that, that's what I do on this show, is point out the obvious, and damn me for doing it. The bulk of Baltimore PD is black. The bulk of the administration is black. The bulk of the city of Baltimore administration is black. And many of the residents are black. Did I mention this was a black officer in a predominantly black area? So my guess is they're probably not looking for a 74-year-old little Jewish shooter of this detective. So they have some problems. Well, the problems continue to this. These are some interesting stats, and this happens to be from Fox News. Let's see if I can get this to go.
Gunman who left a Baltimore police officer fighting for his life. The homicide detective tried to start a conversation with a suspicious person when that man pulled out a gun and shot him in the head.
My best guess is there's more than one other person who's aware that this callous coward with a gun in his hand shot a cop in the head tonight.
That officer is currently on life support. His name has not been released, but what we know is that he's an 18-year veteran of the force with a wife and children.
Here's the interesting part about that. The city of Baltimore, Maryland, has...
I want to say one thing.
No, you're not going to say anything. Quiet, Bill. But here's one thing I do want to say. The city of Baltimore in Maryland has already had 308 homicides this year. It's a population of about 600,000. It's about half the population of Chicago. Chicago, to this point, murder central in the United States, has 600 homicides. So they're at essentially the same rate in Baltimore of killings that's going on in Chicago. Why do you think this is? Because aren't these supposed to be oases of gun-free zones and oases of leftist, positive, progressive thinking? Because we all know Baltimore, Chicago, Illinois, Maryland, they've got some pretty serious gun laws on the books. Are they prosecuting these people as best they can? I'll let you answer the problem. But this is also another bit of an interesting perspective on the situation. Over the past 10 years, 2007, 282 homicides. 08, 234 homicides. 09, 240. 10, 224. It's going down. Do you see a trend? 11, 197. 12, 217. 13, 235 homicides. 14, 211 homicides. Here comes the big trend. I ask you, what happened in 2014 and 2015? Would that be Ferguson and New York and what I call basically the beginning of the Ferguson effect? So, in 2014, in Baltimore, 211 homicides. 2015, 344 homicides. 2016, 318 homicides. This is an upward trend, and it should be disturbing to everyone in Baltimore. 2017, 308 homicides, which is not including the death of this particular detective. So should it come to surprise you that Baltimore PD is having a problem recruiting officers? Should it surprise you that departments all across the fruited plain are having difficulty recruiting officers? What do we know about humans? Frequently, they can actually be intelligent. So you have to ask yourself, what's the motivating factor behind me as an individual deciding that I want to work for Baltimore PD, where I know a couple of things, particularly if I'm in Baltimore? It's got a high crime rate. Cops are getting killed. It's a small city with a big crime rate. It has a terrible crime problem. Baltimore doesn't seem to be very interested in doing much about this. I don't know anything about the DA's office, that I have to admit up front. And we also know that there's massive pressure on the police to take a hands-off policy because they are being accused consistently, and have been since late 2014 and 2015, of the term over-policing. Well, after a while, and I've talked to cops about this for quite some time, and they're predominantly not going to tell you this, because it doesn't sound good. But after a while, they finally determined, we're starting to get the message, because we're consistently hit on the head with it, and it's not just a suggestion or a hint. People in power are telling us this. Back off. There are two types of police activity. There's just a response, and there's self-initiated activity. Self-initiated activity is being a police officer, a deputy sheriff, and you actually go to ground and you start looking for stuff. You start looking for quality of life issues. You start looking and peeking around in neighborhoods to see who's doing what to whom and for what reason. Gathering intel, making sure that you're taking care of your neighborhood and trying as best you can to find out who the bad guys are and perhaps even stop them before they commit a crime. Be on them. And there's a myriad of ways that you can do that. But cops these days are told that they over-police, so the Ferguson effect continues. And it continues to it has massive deleterious effects to all of these cities run by leftists. So they're hammering their police departments. Their police departments are responding. And guess what? Now you have Baltimore. And of course, for quite some time, you've had Chicago. As a result, the Baltimore Police Department has had trouble retaining officers. One report even found that in 2017, the city was operating with fewer officers than in any other time in the past 10 years. Why do you think that would be? Ask yourself this question, not necessarily linked, but in terms of people not understanding common sense. The NFL is leaking viewers, and you can look at the stands on Sundays and see that there aren't very many people in the stands anymore. Now, why do you think that may be? And at the same time, Major League Baseball was having a great year. But Major League Baseball players, by and large, were standing for the national anthem. Hello, Captain Obvious. Let's take Captain Obvious and introduce him to the Baltimore Police Department and the people that run it. Let's take Captain Obvious and introduce him to the mayor of the city of Baltimore, the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, of the city of Chicago, and all the people on the left, white and black, who run these cities, where blacks essentially are being piled up like cordwood. And they can do something about it, but they've decided predominantly that a hands-off policy by the police and handcuffing people with wool handcuffs because you wouldn't want to hurt their wrists, that's the way to handle it. And California, who has laws, Prop 47, which the massively ignorant voters passed, and Prop 57, which the massively ignorant voters passed, wow, you're seeing crime go up in California as well, where they've decided in their infinite wisdom in California that certain felonies are going to be reduced to misdemeanors so that the people who are convicted of these crimes can receive rehabilitation and try to move them out of the criminal justice process. What would one of those felonies be? Manslaughter. What about another felony? Oh, statutory rape. Well, that's rape. What the hell? Come on. That's not a serious crime in California. Certainly not in Southern California. Certainly not in Hollywood. Come on. Put your thinking caps on. In relation to Suter's death, the FBI Baltimore field office and the DEA's Baltimore field office are offering up to $60,000 for information that leads to the arrest. But what do we know about people that happen to live in these communities? They're not going to talk. Which is another reason, because you never help the man, and the police are the man. And so to solve this policeman's death, you're really going to have to work on it. Just like you're going to have to work on every homicide that occurs in front of many people, and they zip their lips. Leftists, you wanted this. Happy stories. Big smile on BZ right now. You wanted it. You fucking got it. Note to leftists and those who live in what I call urban rat cages, like Baltimore, D.C., and Chicago. Note to them, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Baltimore mayor reacts to crime. I am deeply disturbed. Yeah, okay. And so what are you going to do about it? You going to institute something like New York had, stop and frisk? Would it shock you to know that when stop and frisk was at its highest point, crimes were getting solved, bad guys were getting put into jails, and crime went down? My God, who saw that coming? Arresting people and putting them in jail, convicting them, and sending them to prison reduces crime. Please, Captain Obvious, come in, sit down, see if you can have a discussion with these people, because whatever they're talking about right now these days, it's not really working. Then, I happen to be listening. We're going to go back into politics, because I think I've beaten that. I'm very sorry to the family of Detective Souter, 5 children and a wife, a good man who served his country and then decided that he was going to serve his community as well. So my sympathies for the family and for the rest of the City of Baltimore Police Department. I'm sure that there are a lot of you that want to do your jobs, but you are now the ones who are handcuffed. Yay, leftism. I happen to be watching this. This is an article from Breitbart. I happen to be watching this when Shepard Smith said these things. Well, the article from Breitbart says, Fox News viewers demand Shepard Smith be fired after error-filled Uranium-1 report. And people are saying, send him to CNN. In the wake of Fox News anchor Shepard Smith's 6-minute fallacy-filled Uranium-1 fact-check rant on Tuesday, which I did see, and he was full of shit, social media is brimming with enraged Fox viewers calling for the network to dump the longtime host and send him back to CNN. Several left-wing and establishment media outlets reported some of the more searing social media screeds from fans of Fox, many of whom wish the cabler would part ways with its liberal broadcaster. So, Fox News viewers declare war on Shepard Smith for debunking Uranium-1 conspiracy. That's what the headline says in the left-wing Salon. If I had the time to play it, and you can find it on the internet, and it's like I said, it's 6 minutes long, and I'm not going to take 6 minutes to play Shepard Smith, because I think you already have an idea for which team he already plays. And it's not centrist, and it's not leaning to the right. So, Shepard Smith, I heard you state lie again and again and again, and there are consequences for lying. You may or may not suffer them, I don't know. But if you think that Shepard Smith on CNN is going to give you anything even remotely close to facts, you would be seriously wrong. Interestingly enough, the past few days, and I have to do this now because I see something coming on the horizon. Already, people are being groomed for the 2020 presidential elections. And the Republicans are screwing up by the numbers left and right. But one of the individuals that it looks to me quite openly is making a fairly concerted attempt to get more attention, more media attention, because I believe that he is seriously considering running for president in 2020, and that's our friend Uncle Joe, Slow Joe Biden. So here's what Uncle Joe said just the day before yesterday. He said, the First Baptist Church hero shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. And my initial response to that is, are you fucking kidding me? You actually read that correctly. The man who, in every sense, was the guy responsible for stopping Devin Kelly, the guy that was the murderer of the November 5th church shooting in Sutherland Springs in Texas, in which 28 persons were killed. He was singled out on yesterday, by former Vice President Joe Biden, and not necessarily in a good way. Joe Biden says Texas church shooting hero Williford never should have owned an AR-15. Here's the article. Former Vice President Joe Biden says the Texan who confronted Sutherland Springs mass shooter this month never should have owned an AR-15. Gunman Devin Kelly was shot and wounded on November 5th by hero Stephen Williford during the deadliest church shooting in U.S. history. But Mr. Biden told an NBC audience on Monday that an AR-15 should not have aided the Good Samaritan. His comments were during the Today Show appearance, and it was opened up for an audience Q&A session. Well, would it shock you that I have that audio cut right here? So let's listen to what former Vice President Joe Biden actually had to say about the mass killing of 28 people in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
Yeah, Brianna with a question about gun control.
Hello. So with the tragedy that just happened in Texas, my question is, how do you justify the Democratic view on gun control when the shooter was stopped by a man who was legally licensed to carry a gun?
Obvious question. What's the answer?
Well, first of all, the kind of gun being carried, he shouldn't be carrying.
Was it a fully automatic weapon? No.
Assault weapons are... I wrote the last serious gun control law that was written. It was law for 10 years, and it outlawed assault weapons and it outlawed weapons with magazines that had a whole lot of bullets, and so you can kill a whole lot of people a lot more quick.
Whole lot of bullets. Well, tell me, Joe, what do you consider a whole lot of bullets in a magazine? Once again, illustrating that leftists don't know shit about firearms and guns, and yet they're the ones making the laws. That would be similar to Congress deciding that it's going to make laws about how computers are built because, as we all know, they're so skilled in computer building and the mechanics and the electrical engineering required to do that in the first place.
Quickly, number one. Number two, it's just rational to say certain people shouldn't have guns. Now, the fact that some people with guns are legally able to acquire a gun and they turn out to be crazy after the fact, that's life. There's nothing you can do about it.
Oh, my God, he actually said something correct, and that's true. But let me again point out the obvious, because the United States Air Force came up and said this is true. I stated last week that it was the United States Air Force's problem. They did not input the information into the appropriate database so that when Devin Kelly went to go purchase a gun, it would have come back on that database saying that he is not eligible to purchase a gun, and then the laws would have worked, and this would not have happened. We have the Second Amendment. Fucking deal with it. And then to the United States government, the government that everyone hangs their hat on and says, it's such a wonderful government, and everything they do is so perfect. Well, okay, that is until the government itself fucks up. You're only as good as the information that you get. And there was no information from the United States Air Force that anyone could input about Devin Kelly. Do you think that's maybe a bit of a mistake? I certainly do.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Oh my gosh, folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. You probably are on shrmedia.com, which is back in full force. And or you're watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media page on Facebook. You can watch live there, two places. Plus, if you happen to be on High Plains Media, you can go to the TV channel there and listen there as well. We were talking about slow Joe Biden. And good old slow Joe Biden was saying some pretty stupid things. He's saying basically the shooter, Stephen Williford, in the Texas First Baptist Church shooting on November 5th, he shouldn't have had an AR-15. By the way, if you're not familiar with the fact pattern of that, it was a man with a gun who happened to stop a man with a gun. What a shock that is. So consider what it is that Joe Biden is actually saying. In the world, this is what is so insane. And this is how much regard and respect leftists have for you. In the world of Joe Biden, the shooter should have been able to continue on his rampage, and in every likelihood would have done so unopposed and unimpeded until the approved by Joe Biden, the approved wielders of deadly force, of firepower, the police arrived on the scene, and whatever, law enforcement agency was applicable. So note to Joe Biden and the others. Like I said, I worked in law enforcement for 41 years. That's easily twice the standard amount of time worked by most officers. I've seen everything imaginable in a law enforcement venue. And if there's one thing I know is this: there is no way that law enforcement or any law enforcement officer can be everywhere all the time at any time. There's no way that can happen. Further, what is that? That's a police state. If you had something like that, I wouldn't want a police state. And I was the police, so to speak. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, and I wouldn't wish that on any nation. So having said that, Joe Biden, what conclusion can I possibly draw, sir, other than you are apparently more than willing to abandon the ability of average Americans to arm and defend themselves against certain assaults and pieces of shit like this, who should have been stopped by the federal government but wasn't, deadly incursions, etc. And you're saying basically that in your perfect world, they shouldn't have had a gun like that. So let me ask you a question. Would you, as a gun owner, want to go against this guy with an AR-15 or an AR-15-like rifle? It was a Ruger 556, AR-556, which is, the same thing as saying it's a .223 caliber, which is the same pretty much as saying it's an AR-15 type semi-automatic weapon, not automatic. And by the way, in that particular incident, the guy came out of his house, saw what was happening across the street in the church, and was told that there was a shooting, saw the man with the gun, shot at the man with the gun. The man with the gun dropped his gun, stopping the ability of him to continue whatever assault was on his mind, and then shot at the guy. He got in his car and continued. And by the way, it was discovered that some of the shots that hit him were the shots that ended up killing him. Kelly had enough time after being shot and escaping in his car to call his father and say, "I've been shot. I'm not going to make it." Who shot him? Williford. But Joe Biden, in his own little perfect world, says, no, that's not what we want. That's not what we want. Liz Wheeler on OAN weighs in on this as well.
Welcome back. The Democrats floundering as their narrative on gun control completely falls apart. Joe Biden slams the hero who stopped the Texas church massacre. Biden claims the hero who stopped the shooter shouldn't have been allowed to carry his firearm at all. I'm Liz Wheeler, and this is my final point. Okay, so whenever a Democrat and a conservative debate gun control, Democrats immediately regurgitate this talking point, that they just want common sense measures to fight gun violence.
Sure.
They don't want to take people's guns away, they say.
Right.
Nonsense. Do not believe Democrats when they peddle that garbage, because this...
By the way, stop. I'm going to have a post that I'm going to complete probably either tomorrow or over the weekend that we will discuss on Tuesday, where I've done as much research as necessary to discover that when any leftist ever tells you that the end goal is not confiscation, gun confiscation, I tell you in one succinct word: bullshit. That's the exact goal.
Is Joe Biden claiming that the hero who stopped the Sutherland Springs, Texas shooting shouldn't be allowed to own that gun.
So with the tragedy that just happened in Texas, my question is, how do you justify the Democratic view on gun control when the shooter was stopped by a man who was legally licensed to carry a gun?
Well, first of all, the kind of gun being carried, he shouldn't be carrying. Assault weapons are... I wrote the last serious gun control law that was written. It was law for...
So you have to ask yourself, what's wrong with the AR-15? And I can tell you, in just a few words and sentences, one of the primary reasons why the AR-15 is so vilified and hated. It's black. It's kind of scary looking. It doesn't look like a standard rifle, something that you would see in the 1800s. And, oh, by the way, it's scary looking. Besides, when you put certain accessories on it, it's scary looking. And then when you attach certain other accessories to it, whoa, it really gets scary looking. I'm frightened.
10 years. And it outlawed assault weapons and it outlawed weapons with magazines that had a whole lot of bullets. And so you can kill a whole lot of people a lot more quickly. Number one. Number two, it's just rational to say certain people shouldn't have guns. Now, the fact that some people with guns...
Conveniently forgotten about the United States Air Force. Frankly, I don't think Joe knows.
...are legally able to acquire a gun, and they turn out to be crazy after the fact. That's life. There's nothing you can do about that. But we can save a lot of lives, and we've stopped tens of thousands of people from getting guns who shouldn't have guns.
Well, there it is. You heard it for yourself. Now, those of you watching the show, you might be afraid of guns. You might wonder sincerely if we would be safer in our country if we had gun confiscation programs like Australia or restricted gun ownership like many European countries do. The answer to that is no, we wouldn't be safer, and statistics in our own country prove that. Firearms are used here 80 times more often to save a life than to take a life.
Listen to the statistics. Oh, by the way, just to tell you, this is no shock, I'm a member of the NRA. Whoa, BZ, a member of the NRA. Who saw that coming? And I get a magazine every month called The American Rifleman. And people say, oh, well, there's no indication, there's no proof whatsoever about guns actually saving lives. They don't save lives. They only kill people. They don't make people safe. They don't protect people. They don't allow people to defend themselves. There's a column in the American Rifleman every month, that gives story after story after story, 10 to 15 to more stories every month, taken from the press. The American Media Maggots themselves have written up these stories illustrating here are situations where a gun in the hands of a good guy has kept a good guy safe or has managed to kill a bad guy. That's a good thing.
3 out of 5 convicted felons say they wouldn't mess with an armed victim. The cities in the United States...
That's a shocker. Didn't see that one coming either.
...with the harshest gun control laws have the highest rates of gun crime, and all but 2 of the mass shootings in the past 50 years have been committed in gun-free zones, where mass shooters know their victims are sitting ducks. So how do you justify the Democratic view on gun control when the shooter was stopped by a man who was legally licensed to carry a gun? The Democrats' answer, according to Joe Biden, is to take away the gun from the good guy. That leaves just the bad guy with the gun. Does that sound like common sense to you? I think not. According to the FBI, in 2014, 11,961 people were murdered in our country. 8,000 of those murders were committed with a firearm. 5,500 of those murders were committed with a handgun. 262 were committed with a shotgun. And only 248 were committed with any type of rifle. That's right, only 3% of firearm-related...
Any type of rifle. Let's see, what would that include? Oh, that's right, an AR-15.
Murders committed in our nation.
The same gun that was held by Williford, that he stopped Kelly. And eventually Kelly died.
...involved a rifle. That's only 2% of total murders. But will you hear that from Democrats? No,
Nope.
no, you won't, because Democrats don't want you to know the truth. They want you to think the NRA is evil, even though the Sutherland Springs shooter was stopped by a licensed NRA instructor. Democrats and Joe Biden want to ban rifles like the AR-15 because it looks scary. And evidently they don't care that AR doesn't stand for assault rifle, it stands for Armalite rifle. And again, the shooter was stopped by a law-abiding citizen and his AR-15. Democrats want us to trust government officials to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, even though the background check system failed 26 people that day in Texas. But Joe Biden and the Democrats can't justify their position on gun control because it's unjustifiable. They'd rather leave bad guys with guns and take away guns from the good guys. And that's my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you like the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.
What I say about that is, you know what? Let's stop with the damn facts. Stop with them. Just stop. Never let facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, common sense get in the way of a good fucked up decision or an opinion like Joe Biden's. Still in all, you know, think about this. It's absolutely just peachy nifty fine for our leaders to eschew the rules and laws they impose on us little people, us proles, us groundlings, us serfs, us commoners, you know, the people who have personal security assigned to them, people who are paid to carry guns to protect them. That's all well and good. The rest of us can go to a flaming fucking hell. But here's presidential candidate Joe Biden again. And there's some, the reason I put this in is because Joe Biden's been in the news and he's been talking about running in 2020. And then we've been talking about people who are handy with their hands. If you are watching me, you'll see the visual. And Sylvester Stallone, people in Hollywood, Al Franken have been named as essentially serial molesters. Uh-oh. What about Joe Biden? Will this play well in 2020? From GatewayPundit.com, exclusive. Former Joe Biden Secret Service agent, we had to protect women from him. Weinstein-level stuff. A former Secret Service agent assigned to the Vice President Joe Biden, his residence, claims that the service often had to protect female agents from him. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, the agent asserted that we had to cancel the VP Christmas get-together at the vice president's house because Biden would grope all of our wives and girlfriends' asses. The annual party was for agents and Navy personnel who were tasked with protecting the Biden family. Okay, are you shocked yet? He would mess with every single woman or teen. It was horrible, the agent said. According to the source, a Secret Service agent once got suspended for a week in 2009 for shoving Biden after he cupped his girlfriend's breast while the couple was taking a photo with him. The situation got so heated, the source tells Gateway Pundit, that others had to step in to prevent the agent from hitting the then vice president. So do the math. What would you do, think, or say if you were adjacent Joe Biden with your wife or your girlfriend and he does the same thing in front of you? Or if you're a woman, what would you do or say or react if you were in front of Joe Biden and he did that to you or directly in front of your daughter? What would you say or think about that? Additionally, the agent claims that Biden would walk around the VP residence naked at night. I mean, stark naked, Weinstein-level stuff, he said. As everybody says. I think even Sackhead Sean said this last night. Hey, that's just Joe being Joe, right? So let's listen. Let's listen to, as he's doing this, here's Joe just being Joe.
Spread your legs, you're going to be frisked. Drop your hands. You say that to somebody in North Dakota, they think it's a frisk. Drop your hands to the side, you know. You're in trouble, right?
Let's talk about being creepy
You will well and
with
faithfully
Joe
discharge
Biden.
the duties of the office upon which you're about to enter, so help you God. I have no doubt about it. I'm heading up to Capitol Hill now to swear in new members and old members of the United States Senate. And as Vice President, it's one of the great opportunities I have. I loved the United States Senate. It was a collegial place. It has many friends in the Republican Party as the Democratic Party. And today is a really special day.
Thanks to give out
Listen.
here. First and foremost to my perfect wife, Stephanie, my wonderful son, Will, and my daughter, Ava, already mentioned.
Taking a selfie with White Tiger in New York.
Now there's a woman taking a selfie with him.
Hey, Charlie, give him that cute smile.
Bears, I need a hug, kid. Come on. I need a hug. God love you. It's your reputation.
Joe Biden with grandma. Joe Biden with a
What I
daughter.
like most is getting to see their children and their parents, particularly their moms and dads. When I reenact the swearing in the old Senate chamber, where their whole families are able to be there.
Here's a photo, by the way, of Joe Biden touching the shoulders of the wife of a biker sitting next to him. And if you could see the look on the biker, my.
And with them as I reenact the swearing in. It's a moment of real joy.
So there he's talking to a little girl. He's whispering to a little girl with his hand on her shoulder. And then he tries to kiss her.
It has nothing to do with Republican and Democrat. It has to do with having the opportunity to.
And here's Joe Biden snuggling in the hair of a female politician, snuggling in the hair of Hillary Clinton, snuggling in the hair of another female politician.
I consider it. I consider myself a Senate man. So it's good to be going back, and it's good to be able to perform this function. I am not doing this.
Yes, you are. It's part of the job. Constitutionally required.
Yeah, so much for Joe Biden. And that's who they want to run for president in 2020. Really? Great. I have some more, by the way.
And I approve this message.
My mother believed and my father believed that if I wanted to be president of the United States, I could be vice president.
This is the best of Joe Biden.
I'm going to give you the whole load today.
Can you reassure voters in this country that you would have the discipline you would need on the world stage, Senator?
Yes.
Thank you, Senator Biden.
Barack Obama has offered the number 2 spot on the ticket to Democratic Senator Joe Biden of Delaware.
Faithfully discharge
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, Mr. Justice. The man who will be the next president of the United States
Barack America.
Hillary Clinton is
Barack America.
more qualified than I am to be Vice President of the United States of America. And quite frankly, it might have been a better pick than me. We're going to cut through the liquor section. Tens of millions of Americans will be a
Oh, by the way, he was with a black chick, and he says, we're going to cut through the liquor section.
whole lot healthier from this moment on. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
This is when Joe Biden leans over to Barack Obama and says, this is a big fucking thing. And the mic caught it.
Look at what they value and look at their budget and what they're proposing. Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street.
By the way, this is Joe Biden pandering in front of a black crowd. Just thought you should know. Now listen.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
You got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
See, that's Joe Biden saying, you got the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. Hey, that's Barack Obama. Thanks, Joe.
Taoiseach knows a lot about it. His mom lived in Long Island for 10 years or so. God rest her soul. And although she's great, your mom's still alive. Your dad passed. God bless her soul.
Thanks, Joe.
And I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here or walk out, put that double-barrel shotgun and fire 2 blasts outside the house. Buy a shotgun. John's last...
Okay, AR-15 bad, shotgun good. What the fuck?
...minute economic plan does nothing to tackle the #1 job facing the middle class. And it happens to be, as Barack says, a 3-letter word. Jobs. J-O-B-S. Jobs.
A 3-letter word.
Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card.
And I am so proud to stand alongside someone who knows the value of a community college education.
Jill is probably right. I think I'd have the same attitude did I not sleep with a community college professor every night. The same one.
Okay, I think we've heard enough of Joe. Now I want to talk about... Oh, let me preface this. I'm in the process right now... Thank you, Joe. You can go away now. I'm in the process of attempting to contact a former individual who was running for the House of Representatives. She is an immigrant from China. Her name is Lily Tang Williams. The Sackheads radio group, Sackheads Clint, Sean, and I met her at Freedom Fest in 2016 and 2017. She has an incredible immigrant story to tell. I'm in the process of trying to get her on the show so she can talk about all the hardships that she went through and why, after encountering all of those, she completely understands and loves and adores the United States of America. She is a libertarian. Well, that's another reason that we go to Freedom Fest. So she'll be coming on the show because of this. Here's an article from the Washington Times. Millennials. This is the state of America. Millennials would rather live in socialist or communist nations than under capitalism. A poll revealed that recently. This troubling turn highlights widespread historical illiteracy in American society. Step in, Captain Obvious. The majority of millennials. Now, this is interesting because it's making a distinction, and it's somehow a distinction with a difference, which I will get to. The majority of millennials would prefer to live in a socialist, communist, or fascist nation rather than a capitalistic one, according to a new poll. In the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation's annual report on U.S. attitudes towards socialism, 58% of the up-and-coming generation opted for one of the three systems compared to 42% who said that they were in favor of capitalism. The most popular socioeconomic order was socialism. With 44% support, communism and fascism received 7% support each. Marlon Smith, executive director of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, said the report showed millennials are increasingly turning away from capitalism and towards socialism and even communism as what they consider to be a viable alternative. So, I say thank you very much, American educators. And I use that term quite loosely. Leftists, Democrats, and, of course, the American Media Maggots. Thank you for doing such a spectacular job of disseminating your staggeringly slanted, agendized bias. Your lies are working on the mush minds of our youth to the point where you're seeing it reflected in polls like this. The troubling turn highlights widespread historical illiteracy in American society regarding socialism and the systemic failure of our education system to teach students about the genocide, destruction, and misery caused by communism since the Bolshevik Revolution over 100 years ago. A very interesting point. Millennials were the only age group more likely to say America's economic system works against me rather than works for me. Gen Z, this is the point. I found this fascinating. Gen Zers had the most positive impression of the economy, with 66% saying it works for me, although many of them have yet to enter the workforce. On that note, we recently noted, and this all came up because communism basically, celebrated, I guess you could say, use that word, 100 years. The Wall Street Journal said, and staggering numbers, 100 years of communism and 100 million dead. The Bolshevik plague that began in Russia was the greatest catastrophe in human history. Armed Bolsheviks seized the Winter Palace in Petrograd, now St. Petersburg, 100 years ago this week, and arrested ministers of Russia's provisional government. They set in motion a chain of events that would kill millions and inflict a near-fatal wound on Western civilization. The revolutionaries' capture of train stations, post offices, telegraphs took place as the city slept and reassembled, and it resembled a changing of the guard. But when residents of the Russian capital awoke, they found they were living in an entirely different universe. And that's where all the buttery political goodness started. Although the Bolsheviks called for the abolition of private property, their real goal was spiritual, to translate Marxist-Leninist ideology into reality. For the first time, a state was created that was based explicitly on atheism and claimed infallibility. This was totally incompatible and incongruent with Western civilization, which presumes the existence of a higher power over and above society and the state. And there you have the massive difference. We're going to go to a break. It's the bottom of the hour. The final half hour is coming. I'm going to continue on this thought. And by the way, we might just learn a little bit about communism and just how wonderful it is. Thanks for listening to me. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin here on the SHR Media Network. You can find me at shrmedia.com. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Thank you for listening.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American Media Maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reaver Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
You are, in fact, listening to SHRmedia.com. This is the bloviating Zeppelin on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, late night radio. Here it is, one and all. I was talking to you earlier about the 100-year celebration, I guess, if you will, of communism, because that communism is such a wonderful thing to the point that most millennials now are saying that they would rather communism, socialism, or fascism over capitalism, according to the newest poll. So what we found out about communism is that it is completely incompatible with Western civilization. It backs atheism. It presumes the existence of a higher power over and above society and the state. God is where we get our rights. In communism, socialism, fascism, it is the state that gives you and takes away your rights. Now, like I said, you can see the clouds parting at this time. Western civilization, meaning more and more people in the United States, are eschewing, actually, the existence of a higher power these days, like some kind of tin idol named Bill or Burford or something like that. As far as they're concerned, all good things come from the state in terms of our government, with one major, vitally important exception. Those damn pesky things called our foundational documents. We can't trust our government with that. We can't trust the U.S. Constitution. We cannot trust the Bill of Rights. That needs to be changed. Because, you know, those things are like so totally uncool, dude. The Bolshevik coup had two consequences. In countries where communists came to hold sway, it hollowed out society's moral core, degrading the individual and turning him into a cog in the machinery of the state. Communists committed murder on such a scale as to all but eliminate the value of life and to destroy the individual conscience in survivors. And then there's this. In a 1920 speech to the Komsomol, Lenin said that communists subordinate morality to the class struggle. Good was anything that destroyed the old exploiting society and helped to build a new communist society. Does that sound familiar to you? This approach had a tendency to kind of separate guilt from responsibility. Martin Latis, an official of the Cheka, Lenin's secret police, in a 1918 instruction to interrogators wrote this: "We're not waging war against individuals. We are exterminating the bourgeoisie as a class. Do not look for evidence that the accused acted in word or deed against Soviet power. The first question should be, to what class does he belong? Is that this that should determine his fate? What class do leftists belong? And aren't we using identity politics as a striation of class today? Yes, we are. I wonder where that was learned." And then there's this disturbing point that today's educators and students, they don't get this at all. They miss this absolutely entirely. And I submit this might be the most disturbing aspect of it all. Such convictions set the stage for decades of murder on an industrial scale. In total, no fewer than 20 million Soviet citizens were put to death by the regime or died as a direct result of its repressive policies. This does not include the millions who died in the wars, epidemics, and famines that were predictable consequences of Bolshevik policies, if not directly caused by them. The victims include 200,000 people killed during the Red Terror of 1918 and 1922. 11 million people dead from famine, 700,000 people executed during the Great Terror, 400,000 more executed between 1929 and 1953, 1.6 million people dead during forced population transfers, and a minimum of 2.7 million dead in the gulags, labor colonies, and special settlements. What is it that Stalin said? And you'll remember this, definitely. The death of one person is a tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic. Yay, communism. If we add the deaths caused by communist regimes that the Soviet Union created and supported, including those in Eastern Europe, China, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, the total number of victims is a staggering 100 million people killed by communism. Then this fact, and this isn't a suggestion, a hint, or a guideline, this is a fact. That makes communism the greatest catastrophe in all of human history. And this is what millennials want?
Happy birthday, communism. This year marks 100 years since communism began.
Street by street and building by building, the Bolsheviks took over.
The first revolution was in Russia.
In those fantastic days, the sun seemed to have risen at last.
No longer would capitalists exploit workers. Now the people would prosper together under Lenin.
By the way, you have kids and aunts, uncles, young kids who want to know something about their loving communism. Have them listen to this show.
Some people resisted, so Lenin ordered them killed. You need to hang without fail, he said, so the public sees the death of the rich, the bloodsuckers. Stalin continued the killing.
Does that sound familiar today?
Millions of people starved because it turned out that when farmers can't control their property, they don't produce much food.
Ukraine.
Yet today, many leftists...
By the way, there's a movie coming out about Ukraine. I'm going to go watch it when it comes out. I'm surprised that it's coming.
Antifa activists carry communist flags. Some say Well, Russia just didn't do communism right.
Aha!
But when has anyone done it right?
Right.
The Chinese said they would make communism work. Instead, a mob of teenagers called the Red Guard lined up skeptics and executed them. Millions were murdered. Yet even after years of murder, many Chinese people still believe. Look at these people. They are crying, not because they're unhappy. They're crying with joy and excitement just because they got to see their leader.
Just like North Korea. That was then, this is today.
Chairman Mao.
I was brainwashed for...
By the way, this is Lily Tang Williams talking. She's the person I want to interview. Listen to what she has to say.
Entire those school years, Mao was like a god to me. I couldn't listen to him talking to me from the clouds. Just like a religion, right?
But Chinese communism failed even the people who worshipped it.
I was so hungry all the time. My uncle told me how to trap rats. But pretty soon everybody's trying to catch rats. The rats run out too. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Lily Tang was a little girl then. She loved Mao.
Then he died. I really did not know what to believe. It's like I started to realize, was that lie? I was 12. You look at my picture when he died. I was wearing big arm, black bed and crying my eyes out.
But about 8 years later,
I met a U.S. exchange student.
Uh-oh.
We made a dancing party. We started dancing. That type opened up. He said, Lee, come to my room next day. Visit. I want to show you something. He showed me a pocket constitution. He read to me first the paragraph, Declaration of Independence. It's like a light bulb came on. I said, I have rights. All men created equal. Doesn't matter which country, which race, which color. I have rights. He put something in my head. I come to America. My family all were crying when I left. I did not know anybody in the U.S., no friends in Austin, Texas, just sponsor.
Lily came to America with nothing. But here she thrived. And last year,
My name is Lily Tang Williams.
she ran for U.S. Senate as a libertarian. She polled high enough to make the debates.
By the way, if you don't know, John Stossel is a libertarian. And we met him at Freedom Fest this year, and we interviewed him.
American citizen by choice.
I got 100,000 votes.
Her message was that life is terrible without freedom.
I lived under single-payer system, socialist medicine for 24 years. It was total nightmare.
After all my sufferings in China, my awakening process, this is what I was born to do.
Before she became a libertarian, she became a Republican. But then,
In 2008, when they bailed out the banks, when Bush came out to say capitalism failed,
I've abandoned free market principles to save the free market system.
it just...
Right. And so, what should have been done? Bueller, Dan, Mary, Mike, people in chat, what should have been done? BZ, you should have let it all crash. Because sooner or later it's going to crash. And guess what? It all gets rebuilt. That was false. All false. And then Bush is the one who comes back, he and his dad, who both say that Trump is terrible. By saying that and being silent during the years of Obama, that tells me they think Obama's better than Trump, his policies, and the things he's doing. The Bushes are dead to me now. You're dead to me. Just the Bushes, the Clintons, just dry up and blow away. Go the hell away.
It shocked me. They use taxpayers' money to bail the banks. And I thought the Republicans supposed to be for limited government. They
Yes.
expand the Medicaid. No child left behind. And civilians, all that stuff. I got so mad. I
Good for
registered
her.
libertarian in 2008, so I become like an activist.
when Colorado debated gun control, she posted this picture on Facebook with the caption, "I once was a slave. I will never be one again."
I was holding my AR-15 to send a strong message.
You remember what happened in Tiananmen Square 1989?
She told Colorado's legislature the history of China might have been different had the Chinese had a right to bear arms.
This one chick has more balls than 99% of everybody in D.C.
What if we had guns? What if we had unlimited shots? History might be different.
Now she speaks at colleges. She says many young people haven't learned the lessons of communism.
total brainwashed, don't know the truth, trust authority, and trust the government.
So I hope more students listen to Lily Tang Williams.
Big, powerful government, it's very scary. It will keep growing like cancer, will never stop. If you empower government, not the individuals, we're gonna lose this free country. That's not what I came here for. I got 3 children now. It's like, I'm gonna fight here. I'm gonna try to wake you. It's like, don't do any crap to my country.
That's perfect. Don't do any crap to my country. So, yay, communism, right? Because that's such a wonderful thing that most millennials want to see it. What is it that I've said for years and was said in here? Everybody always thinks that they can do, air quotes, do socialism, communism, even fascism better than the last guy, except it never works and it kills people. And this, ripped from today's screaming headlines about the opinions regarding freedom, that a terrible thing, such a nasty word on today's university campuses. From, of all places, the WashingtonPost.com. They wrote this: a chilling study shows how hostile college students are towards free speech. Here's the problem with suggesting that upsetting speech warrants safe spaces or otherwise conflating mere words with physical assault. If speech is violence, and this is the justification that Democrats, leftists, Antifa, and even some in the American Media Maggots use to justify. If speech is violence, then violence becomes a justifiable response to speech. And on what side do we see violence? Some on the right, mostly on the left, historically on the left. Okay, just ask college students, right? A fifth of undergrads now say it's acceptable to use physical force to silence a speaker who makes offensive and hurtful statements. So just knock them out. That's one finding from a very disturbing new survey of students conducted by John Villaneuer, a Brookings Institution senior fellow and University of California at Los Angeles professor. We already know about speech being the same as violence, according to leftists. So in August, motivated by concerns about the narrowing window of permissible topics for discussion on campuses, Villaneuer conducted a nationwide survey of 1,500 undergraduate students at four-year colleges. Financial support for the survey was provided by the Charles Koch Foundation. Oh my God, the terrible Koch brothers, which Villaneuer said had no involvement in designing, administering, or analyzing the questionnaire. As of this writing, the foundation also has not seen, his results. So many of his questions were designed to gauge students' understanding of the First Amendment. College, after all. They pay a lot of lip service to freedom of speech, despite high-profile examples of civil liberty squelching suppression on campus. The survey suggests that this might not be due to hypocrisy so much as a misunderstanding of what the First Amendment actually entails. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you trying to imply that our students today, anywhere, at any level, they don't understand the First Amendment? And perhaps the most shocking, for example, when students were asked whether the First Amendment protects hate speech, 4 in 10, almost 50%, said no. That's, of course, Captain Obvious, incorrect. Speech protecting hatred, or at least speech perceived as promoting hatred, may be abhorrent, but it's nonetheless constitutionally protected. Here's another thing that they found, and you're going to have to explain why to me. on this. I can see the facts, I can understand the polls, but you're going to have to tell me why this is necessarily. Women are more likely than men to believe hate speech is not constitutionally protected. I'm lacking something about understanding that. Now, since I was talking about polls, I've noted this again, but I think it's incumbent upon me to present this. Because as a matter of fact, I noticed that in chat we're discussing communism, fascism, socialism, and Dave Milner had to mention Islam in passing. Well, funny that you should mention that, Dave, because here's an interesting poll from, I wrote about this in 2015 and 2016, my various blog posts on that, and this is from Jihad Watch, and this is the headline, and I got about 7 more minutes left. 51% of U.S. Muslims, listen to this. This is from a poll. 51% of U.S. United States, here in America, Muslims want Sharia. 60% of young Muslims more loyal to Islam than the U.S. Muslims in America. Not Muslims in France, not Muslims in the U.K., Denmark, Sweden, Muslims in the United States of America. A considerable portion of U.S. domestic and foreign policy is based on the assumption that Islam in the U.S. will be somehow different, that Muslims here believe differently from those elsewhere and don't accept the doctrines of violence against and subjugation of unbelievers that have characterized Islam throughout its history. But on what is that assumption based? Nothing but wishful thinking. And future generations of non-Muslims are going to pay the price. Your children, your grandchildren, they're going to pay the price. 51% of Muslims living in the U.S. just this June in 2015, which is when this poll came out, told polling company they preferred having the choice of being governed according to Sharia or Islamic law. Of the 60% of Muslim Americans under 30 who told Pew Research they're more loyal to Islam than America, those are all called clues. Those are all indicators of America in the desperate grip of those who wish to tear this country apart from within. Millennials, some Gen Zers, people on American campuses, people of Islam. Presently, there's an active attempt to install mob rule in the United States. Do not disbelieve me on that. You're seeing evidence in front of your faces, and you know it. Utilizing not just overt violence, but a highly funded, organized, and systematic undermining and overtaking, eliminating, and the rewriting, the advocation of rewriting our fundamental founding documents, eliminating our history in written form, just as Dave and I were talking about last Tuesday when he was talking about the way back and that we have to preserve our history in paper, all the documents necessary, and we have to keep them close to our hearts because, make no mistake, there is a push on to eliminate and change everything about America. The rewriting of our documents, our history in written form, eliminating it, changing it in oral form, in photographic form, and even in physical form, when we allow these people on the left to go to town halls, to town centers and squares, and just pull down whatever statues or indicators of past history they wish. The folks that pulled down the Confederate statue in front of numerous videos, by the way, were they ever prosecuted? No. The DA of that particular agency declined to file. And what do you think, what kind of signal do you think that sends to leftists? A massive, massive signal. Universities, they were once, like towers of higher learning and critical thought. And now they don't tolerate any of it, none of it. The past two generations are shockingly willing to relinquish almost every freedom that they possess, to have the government, when it wants to, at a whim, to sell, to take those freedoms from you and sell those freedoms back. More and more, the government is not even interested in selling them back to you. They just want to take them from you. So, is it for this that 500,000 Americans died in the Civil War? So that we can become slaves of the government? Do the 1.5 million American deaths during service in wartime, does that mean nothing? Do we actually have to do this all over again? Like I called it, it's historical Alzheimer's. Do we have to go out of our way to prove George Santayana was correct once again? And he said, those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Communism and socialism have been tried numerous times in numerous dozens of countries in the past 2 centuries. It always fails. And every new dictator, like I've said, always thinks that in the past it simply wasn't done right. So, like I wrote and I said, they believe that they're the ones. Chavez, Hugo Chavez, the dude in Venezuela, they're the ones that are going to do it right. This time, Maduro. Then they fall, and hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of their own countrymen perish.
Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the only true revolution that has ever taken place in man's history. Every other revolution simply exchanged one set of rulers for another set of rulers. But only here did that little band of men so advance beyond their time that the world has never seen their like since evolve the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
Are we doing that?
And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free. Thank you.
Monsieur has been lost!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, also my email bz@shrmedia.com. Promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Thanks to my very personal KC-135 Ketel 1 refueling team with which I will be consorting very closely in council less than an hour from now. And so, thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thanks to everybody in chat. Thanks for being involved in the chat room. And thanks for listening in podcast and taking the time to listen to the show. You have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.